Ok. Então, muito bom dia a todos. Online e presencialmente é ótimo, está bastante preenchido. É um prazer acolher-vos na terceiro Progress Meeting da rede STAND4Kids. A rede STAND4Kids é uma rede portuguesa de ensaios clínicos pediátricos inserida num projeto mais abrangente, maior, que é o Connect for Children, e muitos de vós já o conhecem, já interagiram, ou já trabalhamos em conjunto, ou já tiveram contacto com ele. Teremos a oportunidade de voltar a falar um bocadinho sobre ele, mas sobretudo de falar também de outros temas relevantes para a investigação pediátrica. Obrigado por terem tirado tempo precioso das vossas agendas. Eu sei que maio é um mês muito preenchido, em particular nestas áreas de investigação. É um mês em que a voz da investigação se ouve em fóruns de outra dimensão. Nas últimas semanas houve vários fóruns de grande dimensão e ainda bem que foram muito concorridos. E são momentos de balanço, por um lado, e momentos de planeamento sobre o futuro da investigação e, em particular, sobre os ensaios clínicos, e é ótimo que assim seja. E ainda há bocadinho estávamos aqui a conversar, eu pelo menos, e não serei o único, sinto que há um dinamismo renovado em alguns destes fóruns e há uma série de aspectos estruturais e circunstanciais que se estão a alinhar e eu espero que possamos aproveitar esses momentos. Agora, no meio dessas vozes, nós queremos muito que a voz da comunidade pediátrica seja ouvida. Isso implica perceber a sua escala. Estamos numa sala pequena, que representa uma casa grande, mas é uma sala pequena, é sempre um palco mais pequeno, é um palco de proximidade, de diversidade, mas também de muita dedicação. É assim que a pediatria funciona do ponto de vista clínico, reflete muito os cuidados pediátricos. E nós queremos que essa voz não seja esquecida nas discussões que se tomam e nas direções que se tomam da investigação em geral, em particular dos ensaios. Estava a ocorrer-me, quando estava aqui um bocadinho a preparar este momento mais formal de introdução, que nós, como profissionais, aprendemos muito cedo que, por exemplo, o choro e a voz de uma criança pode parecer muito monótona aos olhos de outros e aos ouvidos de outros, mas nós aprendemos que pode ter tonalidades muito diferentes, como pais depois vivemos isso na pele, não é? E, portanto, eu acho que é isso. No meio de um coro de vozes com dinamismo na investigação, neste momento, não perder esta voz pediátrica, até porque eu espero que esta manhã reflita que temos bastante a oferecer e há algumas métricas que começam a ser relevantes e eu espero que todos possam participar na sua melhoria. Estes minutos de formalidade, eu já mudo um bocadinho o registro, mas quero tê-los, porque não só é a oportunidade de vos agradecer a presença, mas também para quem não se conheça tão bem, perceber quem temos aqui na sala, online também, e perceber que todos podemos fazer parte desta comunidade de investigação. O professor André terá a oportunidade de falar, como é óbvio, mas quero agradecer a esta casa, a Casa da Pediatria, que é a Sociedade Portuguesa de Pediatria, que tem sido um parceiro continuado da rede desde o primeiro dia, e eu só quero lembrar que aqui o primeiro dia não é há 1 ou 2 anos, é alguns em 2017, quando se começou a planear a participação de Portugal neste projeto Connect for Children, que foi basilar para nós, e portanto através de várias direções que nos têm continuadamente apoiado, nós estamos cá, queremos continuar a estar cá, o vosso apoio é fundamental, portanto muito obrigado. Depois há a IDFM, portanto a Associação para a Investigação da Faculdade de Medicina, que é a instituição que acolhe a rede, que acolhe o projeto sem a qual não existíamos, simplesmente, portanto é um parceiro que tem sido pilar, que tem benefícios mútuos, temos crescido muito num projeto que cresceu muito, é uma instituição que tem ampla experiência em acolher projetos europeus, nós beneficiamos disso, creio que também temos aprendidos em conjunto, do ponto de vista estratégico, do ponto de vista operacional, e portanto agradeço, eu creio que o professor Vasco Carneiro vai estar online, mas agradeço ao professor Velosa e ao professor Fausto Pinto e a toda a equipa. Depois, naturalmente, há a CETRA, que é o Departamento de CRO Académica da IDFM, sem o qual, mais uma vez, nós não existiríamos, portanto, nós trabalhamos em parceria. A CETRA traz know-how, traz experiência, traz qualidade, traz solidez e depois acrescenta os ingredientes de respeito e de amizade e, portanto, e do que é trabalhar em comum e, portanto, agradeço à professora doutora Inês Cabrita. Depois há a Faculdade de Medicina da Universidade de Lisboa, nós hoje estamos online como temos estado, também é uma terceira parte neste projeto e tem sido um parceiro também importante. Depois, em termos de presença, quero agradecer aos centros que estão aqui presentes, aos representantes dos centros, alguns estarão ou estão já online. Isso quer dizer, centros é um termo definido na lei, não é? E definido nas boas práticas, mas é muito mais do que só um ponto de contacto, inclui equipas diversas dos centros de investigação e dos departamentos ou dos serviços de pediatria, neste caso, coordenadores, investigadores, enfermeiros, administradores e, portanto, são a razão de ser de uma rede. Nós creio que temos crescido em conjunto a cada projeto, a cada ensaio. Há um caminho que se faz em conjunto de conhecimento mútuo, há um caminho de tentar percebermos em conjunto o que é o valor de funcionar em comunidade. Nem sempre é fácil, porque há sempre prioridades internas e há sempre maneiras de trabalhar diferente, mas nós queremos muito valorizar este capital de confiança que acho que temos construído em comum. Depois, aos representantes do ecossistema de investigação, eu agradeço a presença e a curiosidade, porque é muito bom para nós que tenham curiosidade neste pequeno nicho de investigação e, portanto, neste caso, a atenção e a participação na moderação. Nós já temos relações institucionais há bastante tempo, em muitos casos, mas quero agradecer à professora Paula Macedo, à ICIB, ao professor João Freitas, que virá da PT CRIM, à doutora Joana Batuca, se me permitem agradecer à professora Emília a sua presença, porque sempre e acompanhou este projeto desde o início, ao Infarmed, que não está em presença, mas que a doutora Susana Marques e o doutor João Passarinho poderão estar à distância, e depois, mais tarde, teremos, como sempre, a oportunidade de ter a professora Alexandra Ribeiro, que é um sinónimo da bioética a nível nacional e que nos tem acompanhado também neste trajeto. Depois, aos representantes da indústria farmacêutica, quer do ponto de vista estratégico, quer operacional, tem sido muito gratificante trabalhar em conjunto e perceber também em conjunto onde é que pode haver sinergias. Não vos vou nomear todos, mas também depois queria agradecer a presença da Apifarma, a doutora Cristina, que também nos tem acompanhado, e por extensão também a todas as CROs que aqui estão, e portanto é muito bom perceber que também podemos trabalhar em conjunto. E depois também um agradecimento aos preletores, alguns ainda não chegaram, porque a clínica também ocupa, mas em particular a doutora Sofia Moeda, que nos vem falar em representação de um grupo, também com a professora Helena Fonseca, mas vem-nos falar dos YPEGs e quero muito que ouçamos em conjunto o que é que pode ser o trabalho com crianças e jovens. E, finalmente, as organizações de pessoas com doença, crianças com doença ou em risco de doença. Há um caminho amplo de colaboração que podemos ter. Temos aqui algumas que já conhecemos e que já nos conhecem. Não foi uma aposta desde o início do projeto por várias circunstâncias, porque a rede tinha que se construir e tínhamos que ter solidez na rede antes de criar expectativas que pudessem não se cumprir, mas estamos aqui e temos um amplo espaço de colaboração. E, portanto, só posso acabar e agradecer a toda a equipa do STAND4Kids, depois teremos a oportunidade, para quem não a conhece, de a conhecer, mas em particular à Lidiana Bento pela organização. E depois desta formalidade, que me custa fazer este discurso todo, registado aqui, para não falhar, eu queria trazer um registro de mais à vontade, está bem a todos, porque é a natureza da comunidade ser assim. Antes de dar só uma ou duas linhas de parte prática, não sei se o professor André Graça quer dar algumas palavras.
Só muito rapidamente e começar por pedir desculpa porque não vou poder ficar o dia todo, mas era muito importante para a direção da Sociedade Portuguesa de Pediatria estar aqui. É importante receber-vos e é importante dar-vos as boas-vindas e manifestar o suporte contínuo, como o professor Ricardo Fernandes já teve a oportunidade de mencionar, da Sociedade Portuguesa de Pediatria a esta rede, que todos nós, como pediatras e investigadores, sempre pensámos que era fundamental existir, mas de facto, se não fosse esta iniciativa, seria muito mais difícil. E, portanto, tendo também já participado como investigador principal num dos ensaios lançados pela STAND4Kids em Portugal. Tenho bem a noção de tudo o que isto implica e de todo o trabalho que a equipa faz, que é excelente e que, no fundo, permite dar acesso às crianças na Europa e, portanto, também em Portugal, a investigação de algumas moléculas, não propriamente moléculas que tenham grande interesse comercial para a indústria, como é o caso do TOK, que foi um ensaio que está concluído, não é? Foi concluído muito recentemente, o recrutamento, e estamos à espera agora dos resultados, e, portanto, mostra que, de facto, apesar de serem poucos anos, já começamos a ter resultados de todo este trabalho desta equipa excelente a nível nacional e a nível internacional. E, portanto, bem-vindos a todos e parabéns pela iniciativa e parabéns por continuarem o projeto.
Obrigado. Regras da casa, não é? Eu acho que só quero dizer que há um almoço para muitos dos presentes e nós vamos um bocadinho em filinha seguir o trajeto que alguém nos vai indicar. Nós temos 2 painéis, eu ainda não mudei para o inglês. O primeiro painel que a professora Paula irá moderar, nós mudaremos para o inglês, portanto temos aqui a oportunidade de agradecer à doutora Pirco Lépola e de fazer aqui um bocadinho um switch. O segundo painel será em português, mas sempre com os slides em inglês. Temos amplo tempo de discussão, apesar de eu já estar a divergir um bocadinho, e teremos perguntas online. E aqui para os moderadores nós teremos aqui um bocadinho um apoio para tentar identificar se houver perguntas online. Espero que haja. Muito bem. Da nossa parte acho que é tudo e se calhar poderíamos então começar com o primeiro painel.
Muito bom dia. So, good morning. I will turn into English, and I'd like to start to say that I'm not here in my hat of the Nova Medical School, but as a recent acquainted Vice President of ICIB, and in that respect, I have to say that it's really a pleasure to understand how the country is moving and is moving in clinical research, specifically, even though your words were saying we are a small group, you are the future of Portugal. So that is, and we need to take care of the future people of Portugal. So I think it's even small, it's a giant step. And really impresses me what is being done. So I'd like to start to introduce the first speaker that just spoke. So he's the head, he's the mentor of all this day. And it's really a pleasure in that respect. So Professor Ricardo Fernandes is Chief Medical Officer at Connect for Children Stitching, a Dutch-based foundation created in 2023, so it's very recent. And he also works of the Connect for Children project, where he has served as a lead and coordinator of forum of 20 national hubs and lead for STAND4Kids at the Portuguese National Hub. So really representing the movement and the relevance of the field in Portugal. He is also a professor of clinical pharmacology at Lisbon School of Medicine and a consultant of pediatric at ULS Santa Maria. He's going to talk about the Stand for Children and Connect for Children, a shared journey to facilitate pediatric research. And Stanley, please come and give us the wonderful talk that I'm sure will inspire us.
I'm sorry about going back and forth and having someone presenting myself, but okay. So this can I have to change? Okay. Here. Okay. Eu estou aqui. Já posso. Okay. So thank you very much again. And we're going to start the day by a summary journey of what STAND4Kids, along with Connect for Children, have within a much larger ecosystem, and that is, I think, the key point about our contribution is understanding we are a part of an ecosystem, how can we contribute, and the many ways that all of us together can work within the mission of improving medicines for children and possibly even other therapeutic areas. So it's been a journey, and the starting point for the journey is always, these are our starting point within the field of pediatric therapy. There are many challenges. We've known now it's the children are not small orphans, are not small adults is a mantra, is a cliche that is already more than 30 years old. And so we've moved beyond that in a way, because we know very well that there are very good clinical pharmacological reasons why there are changes in maturation, ontogeny, and development in pharmacokinetics and pharmacodynamics in children. There are differences in pediatric formulations. There are needs. We know that there are gaps in pediatric evidence. All of this leads us to still quite impressive and shocking use of off-label drugs, in particular in some age ranges. And although ethics in pediatric research is always somewhat of a contentious issue, there are also methodological aspects that we need to consider. And now we are in a world where the focus on rare and ultra-rare diseases has become now at the forefront of research. This is very good. And we've also moved beyond just thinking about drugs and think about other medicinal products and devices in medtech. And then we know that we need to hear the voices of children and young people. And so this brings challenges all across both the assessment of short and long-term benefits of drugs, both for approval and then after approval for HTA, for health technology assessment and pricing. We've talked about off-label. But it's interesting when you actually look at very recent data. First, yes, we continue to prescribe off-label in quite frequently. And if you take a look at this data from our colleagues in the Netherlands, all which is in gray is on-label, and all which is in other colors is off-label. And that means that, yes, we continue to prescribe a lot off-label, in particular in younger age ranges, but actually also some of the off-label drug use is well supported by some kind of evidence. And it's also an issue that we have pretty good evidence in some cases, but we just can't get it into a medicinal products label. And it is also important to highlight that, for example, if you take a look at preterm babies, we've had less than a handful of drugs being approved on label for newborns now for a very long time. Now, these two and a half decades of overhaul of pediatric drug development have led us to think that we cannot think about drug development in children in the same way, because there are clearly different case scenarios. If you think about how you treat fever, as a clinician, I know that there are questions still to be answered about what is the best, most efficacious, and what is the most safe way to treat fever. But this is everyday use, routine use of drugs, and this is certainly post-approval evidence. And then that is clearly different from de novo pediatric medicines, with two excellent case studies from the recent past or recent present, if that's a thing, that clearly show us that development of essentially pediatric medicines, yes, they can be used in adults, but it's essentially pediatric conditions, RSV, bronchiolitis, and spinal muscular atrophy. There have been really breakthroughs, and these require tailored pediatric development plans. And then there's also the issue of repurposing off-patent medicines. There's an example, propranolol, very well-known drug, used now for infantile hemangioma. And then there is the development around extrapolation, and extrapolation is used here technically as a framework to extrapolate data from adults or from older children to younger children. And here's an example in cardiac failure with sacubitril valsartan. Now, we have different needs in terms of research for all these archetypes of pediatric development, and we know the challenges. They're listed here. And even today, this is true. Finding the medical need, finding the right population, agreeing with EDCO in the European space or with FDA of a development plan. Then we have small populations. Then we have the need in many cases for innovative study designs with very few numbers, ultra rare in some cases. And we meet the issues of insufficient trial infrastructure, divergent views of ethics committees, and many other challenges here. But what we want to tell you as part of an organization and as part of a network of many others, and as part of an ecosystem, is that actually pediatric research is now daily business for many people. And yes, we can overcome in many cases many of these challenges. We don't have miracle solutions, but most challenges can be overcome with the right support. Maybe all challenges is a little bit optimistic, but most challenges at least. Research that benefits the population is ethical if the interventions can be proportionate, well justified, if the protocols can do that. And the pediatric community can help. And that includes sites for here, learned societies, where within a learned society, a Portuguese pediatric society, certainly European reference networks and other networks. And then Connect for Children was created within this ecosystem, now also as a nonprofit that we created about a year ago to improve medicines for babies, children, and young people. This was the work that was done during these years, and STAND4Kids was born out of Connect for Children. So we worked in developing a trial support service across 20 national hubs, more than 250 sites initially for site identification, site setup, recruitment, and site engagement with proof of viability studies, strategic feasibility advice around clinical and patient experts, and then work on pediatric data standards, what we call multi-stakeholder meetings, now a very common methodology that we had the pleasure of working with the oncology community, pediatric oncology community to learn from them, and then a very useful training academy. Now, how does a request progress in C4C, now C4CS, this stichting, this very hard to pronounce name, which is a kind of foundation nonprofit in the Netherlands? Well, in terms of trial support services, there's a request, there's an adoption process, there's a contracting, CDAs are in place, confidentiality disclosure agreements, and then all this menu of services can be provided: trial preparedness, site identifications, feasibility, exploratory conversations, and then support to trial setup execution. So we are not a CRO, we do not take on sponsor delegated roles, but we try to fill in the gaps and work with sites and with CROs and sponsors in supporting this. And you can see timelines here because we work, yes, to timelines. One of the examples of the assets that you may find boring, but is actually quite a hurdle in many cases, is the fact that we have a contracting structure in place across a lot of different agreements, CDAs being an example. A very innovative CDA cascade was set up in which a sponsor works with central C4C, and then it only has to sign one agreement, and then we set up both national hubs and then site CDAs quickly because we work in an approach that takes on metrics, performance, and quality in consideration. We don't work together, and these are the 20 national hubs covering 21 countries that we've worked on during the project and that we hope to continue working after the project. You will find here STAND4Kids with its 10 sites, 8 academic sites, and then 2 additional oncology sites. And then you will see that PIRCO's FinPedMed is somewhere around, where is it? It is here. Here it is. And we work with others, and some of these networks were already existing, others were built with C4C, and many or all of them are inserted into their infrastructure. And for example, the Nordic ones work within a system that also has a single point of contact across the country and then it has its own single point of contact approach within the network. What are we? Well, we are a set of slightly heterogeneous institutions that are members of this organization, mostly academic-based institutions, which have strong links to the national pediatric research community and clinical community. And because they work in continuity, close to the sites when they can, and don't work just one project, it's not a one-off. We've been here for long. We hope to continue to be here. They work across a portfolio, across a set of academic or industry trials. They work across a set of sponsors that helps them be closer to the pediatric research community, understand daily constraints, and try to work with sites to leverage the capacity and raise awareness. And then this is the set of potential support that they can provide. Now, where are we in Portugal? Well, these are numbers from a master thesis that's currently being finalized, just based on registered trials on CTGov, on EDRA-CT, on the national portal of sites, of studies. And you can see that the numbers, sorry for this being too small, but this is up to 2023. The numbers were going up. The data set for 2023 wasn't finalized, and that's why there's a lot of unknowns. But the numbers seem to be going up, pediatric trials. It's still mostly children and adolescents, and also including adults. That means that there are quite a lot of trials that have adolescents and adults. Actually, in the past, maybe we were kind of critical of some of those, but we now recognize they do have quite an important place in terms of allowing earlier access to testing to adolescents. And then it's essentially phase 3, again, sorry for this being hard to read, with few early phase trials, a few, but again, these are any of the phase 2, 3 that happens in children. And you can see that geographically, the distribution is the expected distribution in the large academic centers, but there's a few contributions, very interesting, across other sites. What is the STAND4Kids portfolio at this stage? Well, I'll give you a hint. During the project, we supported trials, academic trials. We supported a cystic fibrosis trial that unfortunately was terminated due to the good news of the treatment landscape having changed a lot. And then we have, as Professor Graça just mentioned, the Trio Kappa trial, a prophylactic treatment of ductus arteriosus in preterm infants, a very common condition, that successfully closed recruitment very recently with a very good contribution from Portugal. 30 out of 43 babies recruited in 3 sites. This is already a revised target because our initial target was much lower, and with the contingencies of, as you all know, changes in at least one of the sites in the tough context for perinatal care. And there's going to be a follow-up at 2 years of age, which is very important in the neonatal trial. So kudos to all of the teams, and some of them are here for their contribution. And hopefully we will get an answer to the question. Sometimes the answer is negative, sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's neutral. But thanks to INSERM and the Trio Kappa team in France and all the sites, this came to a good ending. Then there's been work across both C4C and also in some cases non-C4C work. This is only a partial snapshot because there have been other activities that we've done across trials, but you can see that across the years the numbers have been going up. A quite diverse set of therapeutic areas. The number of sponsors is also different. These are not from the same sponsor, and we've supported site identification, feasibility across a number of sites. And in particular, we're involved within C4C in these first trials here with Bayer with the Fiona trials, J&J with the Quasar Junior, and Novartis with an asthma trial. There have been more, and also with MSD in providing support. What does this look like? Well, there are a few examples here of regular communication, ad hoc support if sites are working as they mostly do. There's no need to intervene, but we try to mediate and try to come in as trying to respect the way that the sites work. Obviously, again, there are sometimes internal ways of working that are different. It's understanding that we're here to try to support, because in the end, we were just talking about this before the meeting. In the end, there's a measure of language of metrics. There's a measure of language of performance. We can have very good PIs, very good teams, but if we don't meet some of the targets, this will not work. Trials won't even come by here. And so all of this is a joint effort to put Portugal in a good position when it comes to performing these trials. And ultimately, this will allow access to potential new treatments to be tested. The network goes beyond that, as many of our colleagues, as FinPedMed, I'm sure we're going to hear, works on both education and training. I'll take a minute on that. We will hear from YPEG, from the Young Persons Advisory Group, and we've started doing contacts with some patient organizations. We, from the beginning, interacted and interfaced with regulatory and relevant stakeholders in Portugal. We have ongoing contact with sites, with sharing sessions, with an annual meeting, with some site contacts, and with an interest to develop communities, and also relationship building with industry and some dissemination. Just going into one or two things that I would like to highlight on this. The C4C Academy is still up. It's still going to be up for at least a year. In the future, the Stichting wants to continue to provide education and training. We have to find a model for this to work. But you can see here the list of courses that the C4C Academy currently has. I think there are more than these. And these are all available for free for all sites that are involved and for members of the network. And if you want to answer the question, has Portugal adhered to it? Yes, we've always been on the top 3 of users. And for me, that's actually number 2, which is actually number 1 because the C4C Academy is based in Italy. So this shows that in terms of willingness to train, the willingness is there and hasn't faded through the years. And we could have different numbers also around who's using this. We've tried to get together with the sites as we did in the past. We went along this year to revisit and to connect as much as possible. Still work to be done there. We have to do more work, and hopefully the sites can take some out of this. We don't have direct resources for sites. This was, by the way, something that the IHI upfront said it could not provide. So the European Commission directly said it could not provide direct support to sites. And the way that we can support is raising awareness through these activities and providing opportunities for trials. We also obviously have different channels of communication that you can check. That means being present across a number of meetings and trying to be aware of the ecosystem. And in particular, obviously, this happens because of a team. And I want to highlight here that during the project, because of the quality of the team, we've actually now begun having central roles in the Network Infrastructure Office now for more than 2 or 3 years, something like that. Both myself, Francisca, now Inês, also obviously with the support of all of the other team members of the National Hub. And we are now having a role within this new Stichting. So I think that's also good and it brings opportunities that maybe everyone can benefit from in the future. As we, I think this is my last slide, we're almost, as we transition to the Stichting, and the Stichting was created on the 25th of April last year. It's symbolic for us. We have many challenges. For certainly the sustainability of the Stichting and of the national hubs. We plan to have some core funding that's insufficient to cover all the activities of the national hubs. Pirko and myself know very well how that is a problem for us and has been for a long time. We're working hard to try to meet the needs of the national hubs. We want to align and interface and find synergies with the national infrastructure. That could mean mapping, that could mean the single point of contact. We want to continue providing training and capacity to the pediatric research community. There's a huge young pediatricians community that we need to tap into. The challenge of tapping into the young pediatricians is something that we're feeling all across Europe, and we need to find ways to engage them. Then there's a lot to be done in terms of engagement with young people and families. We work closely with YPEG.net, and I'm sure Sofia Moeda will talk about this, but this is the organization that has been very active in this field. We hope we can do that with patient organizations also. And then how can we support sites? Giving them pathways to develop. We have developed site standards, also within PRIMA. We'll hear from the agency, from the organization later, but how can we support sites in meeting those standards? And then it's working with the research infrastructure. So yes, there's fragmentation. I don't think we will overcome this, but there's a lot of work around different areas. Some of which many of you are involved in. There's work with research infrastructures, networks, and learned society. A Trio Capo wouldn't be possible without the support of ECRA. So essentially, the most successful academic study that was also run through C4C was run with the support of ECRA and ECRA CTUs. So it doesn't cover all of the C4C countries, but without ECRA, it wouldn't be possible. So we have to find ways. ECRA has done a lot of work in the past with PEDCRA as an example of a focused network also in pediatrics, including trials. So we have to find ways of working together. European reference networks. This heat map that you can see here is someone working within C4C to try to identify which sites are covered by European reference networks on C4C and not. And we have to also find ways. European reference networks are the go-to networks for clinical care, and in some cases also clinical research. And one of our trials was also done with a European reference network. There's the ATRIS, the ZEPTRI, so also part of the research infrastructure. Then with the agency, we'll hear from NPRIMA, we'll hear from ACT-EU. Then in the rare disease spaces that I know some stakeholders here have a very important role, we're part of ERDERA as the strategic partnership, strategic alliance. And just now, I think the EJP-ERD is just wrapping up, or just wrapped up in Bari. But we were part of these conversations and part of a recent submission, which is realized for rare diseases and IHI. And we work closely with two other networks, IACT in the US and MyCERN in Canada. MyCERN just had an approval for a large research network in rare diseases. And then the devices, we were also involved in projects and on devices. So a lot of opportunities. This is the pipeline of medicines in development for children. I'm sure it's not comprehensive. It's data from a few months ago. I'm sorry you can't see the details, but genetic disorders, infectious diseases, cancer, obviously, but a lot of drugs being developed, many of them in the rare disease space. There are a lot of opportunities that we have to work together on. Some of this relates to innovation, early access, and how can we make that conversation on a national level? How does research relate to early access, to innovation, then to HTA? But I think we're in a very good position to take these opportunities and make a brighter future of opportunities for our kids here in Portugal. So thank you very much. This was what I had, and we will have the opportunity for questions in the end, but thank you.
So thank you for your overwhelming talk. And it is really a great pleasure to introduce Dr. Pirco Lepola. And it's always relevant to have people that can come from abroad and help us to move forward, especially someone that has lots of experience. So Pirco is an expert in biotechnology for drug discovery and drug research. She works as a development manager at Helsinki University Hospital in Finland. For 30 years has been working in clinical trials and pharma industry CROs companies and university hospital research management, and as well as in European projects. She has been working as executive secretary for the Finnish Investigators Network for Pediatric Medicines for 70 years, and for the Nordic Network, Nordice PedMed, for 10 years. So, as you can see, it's very extensive and involved in the field. She recently, well, not so recently, but since 2019, she's chair of the EMA, and she's becoming specialized in pediatric clinical trials, research ethics, and administrative development of clinical research infrastructures. And as well as European Forum for Good Clinical Practices Medicines for Children Working Party, and as well as advisory for the board of Swiss Pernet at Switzerland. So thank you for coming, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for these nice words for the chair. Thank you. And before I start, I want to thank the organizers and the special thanks to STAND4Kids, all the group. You have done amazing work here, and for organizing this, and also the Portuguese Pediatric Society to having this opportunity to give this speech. As you heard, my background is in Helsinki University Hospital. Does this go directly? Okay, and I have really a privilege to be and working as a chair elected amongst the networks at Imprima, but I do it with a co-chairing with Gunther Ecker, the scientific officer from the agency side, so I'm not doing that alone. And this is my second term, and that's the maximum 2 terms what we can do as a chair from the networks. So I will step down in 2025 October, and then there will be a next chair amongst the networks. But I will tell you now about the Imprima, and the title was The Past and Future, so a little bit about the past also, and then very briefly about our own national network in Finland. So this is my disclaimer, and I'm not going to read through this, but you can see that. Well, my contents comprise mainly 4 topics, and then very short summary based on the signals we know already for the future. And first of all, I will tell you about the legal basis and the background for Imprima. So if somebody do not know that yet, so it's really I'm happy to introduce this. The European Network of Pediatric Research at the European Medicines Agency is kind of an umbrella network of networks, of research networks, investigators and centers with a recognized expertise in performing clinical trials in pediatric population. And this text comes directly from the regulation, pediatric regulation. I will tell about that later. But the mission is quite simple. The main aim is to facilitate the medicine research and increase the availability of the medicines for the pediatric population and for the children. The background is based purely on pediatric regulation. As you may remember, it came into force in 2007, and the regulation is targeted mainly towards the industry, because the industry holds the majority of medicinal products coming to the markets through the clinical trials in Europe. And the academic partners hold only about 20-25% of the medicine research and the clinical trials in Europe, both in adults and in children. And so in regulation text, there was this Article 44. I'm not going to read it through again, but you can see there is the clear statement where are the requirements for the network and the objectives, how the network operates. The next step was the year after the regulation, the EMEA, that was the abbreviation before for the agency, created this strategy for this new network. And it was an implementation strategy where it said about the proposal of the structure of the organization and resources and more detailed objectives, how the progress would be monitored during the development and by using certain indicators. And the timeline for planning was set up to the end of 2008. Then the first step after that implementing strategy was in year after, in 2009, when they organized first one-day workshop at the agency premises. And the aim of this workshop was to discuss and initiate the development of this new network. There was also representatives from the European Commission and the other EMA groups, and the work included two main subgroups to think the composition of the coordinating group and what would be the suitable recognition criteria for our future members. And the both subgroups continued working the following 6 months. And the next meeting to report these outcomes was organized in the agency in June same year, and the work was said to be finalized within next months. The final structure was decided in May 2010 and by the 38 networks, and finally the actual launch of Imprima officially was in 2011. And then I'm happy that was invitation from to me. I was happy to join both of these meetings back then. And the first paper came out in 2012 and led by the lead author, Dr. Nicola Ruperto from the Printo network from Italy. And next, this was the short history. So the next, what is the current structure and current activities of the Imprima after 13 years? The website can be easily found from the EMA main website. You go there and you look at the partners and networks and then the networks. There are currently only 2 networks under EMA. The other one is the European Network of Centers for Pharmacoepidemiology and the Pharmacovigilance, ENCEP, and the other one is Imprima. And here you can look also, you can look at the database of our networks and the membership form and the contact point here. And what is the current structure then? The current structure is based on the, first of all, the coordinating group. The coordinating group, it's the governance. It meets 3 times a year, discuss and decide the network's long and short-term strategy, and also they agrees on work plans and accepts the new members, if there are new member applications, and reports to the pediatric committee. And you may know already, but the PDCO, the Pediatric Committee at the agency, is the scientific committee for the Imprima, and therefore the coordinating group reports to all the activities to PDCO. But it's really important to understand and remember that Imprima is not officially involved in any of the regulatory evaluation work what the PDCO do. Our members form the network. Without the members, there would not be a network of networks. So this is the currently situation. We have many networks representing all type of pediatric patients, from newborns to almost adolescents. We have currently 53 member networks. The C4C is also a member network in Imprima. As you can see, we have different categories. The membership based on the categories, and we changed these categories in 2021, and these were reduced from the 4 categories to 3. And the category 1 member networks are fulfilling all the minimum requirements and can be also part of the coordinating group. The very important part is our secretariat. Without the secretariat support, we would not able to do and organize meetings and do all the main core things, arranging the workshops and all the other activities what we do. And from this graph, you can see a little bit small, but you can see how the networks have developed. These are the member networks of Imprima. In what decades these networks were established mainly, not so many during the past years, but mainly in between the 2010 and 2019. So, if we look, what's the Imprima's role? What the Imprima do, basically. This is the list of all the main activities we do there, and all our members together. We have these meetings and we try to bring together all the stakeholders. But most of all, the best example of our work is the providing the guidance and having the very important working groups for all type of topics around ever since 2013, when the working groups were decided to establish. So these working groups are very important because they produce deliverables, articles, recommendations for all the stakeholders. They're publicly available on the Imprima website. And the very good way to get involved and also to know better what Imprima do is to join our open workshop, annual workshop. It's open for everyone, so welcome. Next open workshop is in October, beginning of October this year. So you can look from the website the more information on that. But equally important, what Imprima does not, it's important to know. Imprima does not fund studies. It doesn't act as a CRO or manage studies. It doesn't decide on the research priorities, what should be studied and what should be researched. This is the responsibility of the member states and also the individual networks, as Ricardo explained, and also through the EU Commission, because Commission provides these community programs and funding instruments. So this is something which is out of the Imprima's remit, so to say. So the key activities. The queries, usually we receive queries from the industry, from the PDCO, from the networks, and these are usually about expert advice, clinical advice, or new trial proposal, and we share it with amongst the members. The second one is this very important part is this information sharing. Our secretariat share all type of information, mainly to the emails and these regulatory meetings, but there are many types of events, and we try to share that information to everyone. The public consultations is also one of the main core activities, and this is about that kind of consultations which are origin from for example, from the European Commission, from the WHO, for the FDA, from the EMA, from the ICH, or member networks, and that kind of things. All our working groups, they do a lot of surveys, so that's what we share there. And again, the most important one, the main activity is the multi-stakeholder working groups. Well, usually in these working groups, there are two chairs, one from the academic side and one from the industry side. And there have been many, many different working groups since 2013. But these are the current ones ongoing. And they work so as long as they reach a deliverable or some kind of result or report. So quickly about this, what Imprima and all other stakeholders have enhanced in pediatric development up to the marketing authorizations ever since the pediatric regulation. You probably remember this 10-year report from the EU Commission, which includes, you can find it from the website easily, it includes all the analysis, what have been done and what medicines have been approved, and how many pediatric investigation plans have been completed in time, and how many pediatric clinical trials have conducted in Europe. But shortly, there was 260 new medicines in this by this report authorized. There were an increase of 50% of pediatric clinical trials in Europe, and also there was this new milestone about 1,000 PIPs by PDCO, and also there were several medicines, the PIPs approved and done and completed by the report time. And the last statistical side is the newest data. I refer probably to the almost the same data as Ricardo explained from the agency. I received this yesterday. These are the pediatric trial applications. And as you know, in Europe, they are not separately pediatric trials as such, as Ricardo explained. We have clinical trials which the sponsor informs whether they are patients under the age of 18 included in those trials. So, but we call those as pediatric trials. So you can see the trend here and the numbers. Here is the 10-year report. There was a little down numbers after the COVID and after the Brexit. The Brexit came from here, but still happily it was good to see that the numbers went up back. And now it seems that we are here about around the almost normal numbers of pediatric trials. Usually the general annual numbers are around 400 for pediatric trials, and it's about 10% of all clinical trials in Europe. The overall number is around 3,400, 500 or 4,000 approximately for all trials, and pediatric trials are approximately 10% of that. This is the last slide of statistics, but this is about the report, the European Commission, the last report from the EMA. You can find it from here. In the annex, it's about how many PIPs were scheduled to be finished by 30 of June 2022, and how many of these were completed and discontinued and so on. And as you can see, only 50%, 53% of these PRPs were completed in time. And that's a little bit disappointing, but as we know, there have been very, very long deferrals for the PIPs for the past 10 years and over. And some of these were even discontinued and not completed at all. But if we look at the waivers, the proportion of waivers is about 40%. It covers the whole period of this regulation. In average, there are 106 PRPs per year, but 40% are the waivers. And those who cannot remember when the waiver can be granted, it can be granted by the PDCO to the applicant when the product is likely to be ineffective or unsafe, for all the pediatric population or the part of the pediatric population regarding the trial, or that the disease or condition for which the specific product is classed for is intended to occur only in adult population, or when the specific medicinal product does not represent scientific therapeutic benefit over the existing treatments for the pediatric population. So these are the three main reasons why the waiver can be granted, and that's why 40% of the PRPs have received the waiver. And so that means that this doesn't need to be studied in children. Okay. Then I quickly go through to this overall research landscape in Europe, and you had really much nicer, probably the logos and everything. I have this little bit dull line here. I'm not going to through everything here, but you can see what has been how this have evolved in Europe. During the past 20 years, ever since ECRAN received the first framework funding from the European Commission 2004, and when they started, and now it's a permanent structure, and you can see Imprima here in 2011, and there are many others projects and funding streams and the funding instruments used for the pediatric medicine development. You can see here down here are the European Young Persons Advisory Groups and other initiatives. And here, very soon, we are going to see the pharmaceutical reform of these two legal streams. But the Imprima has worked for 13 years by now. This is the legislative and guidance framework leading our work and everyone's work here. So first of all, regarding the pediatric trials, we have the new regulation for the clinical trials. That includes many aspects suitable for pediatric clinical trials. There are many clauses which says how the pediatric trial should be conducted. Then we have the specific ethics guidance, the ethical consideration. There was also a revision 2017. Then we have this action plan. There are many steps already completed there from the action plan. And this new strategy and the legislative changes for orphan and pediatric regulations. As you may know, the Parliament adopted it already in April, and the European Council is now reading on it. And the next step will be after the European Parliament elections. After that, it may take a year or two with the transition period to come into force. The GCP, well-known GCP, there will be this revision 3 very soon, hopefully next year, including also some aspects suitable for the pediatric trials. And then finally, I will quickly introduce the national network for you. We have been growing in Europe for 17 years. We are nice teenagers right now. So as Ricardo also mentioned, we are part of the Connect for Children project, the C4C. We have been operating with our 5 university hospitals because we are a rather small country. We have 5 university hospitals, but some central hospitals and private clinics are also included because our members work there. Our legal entity is based on the Helsinki University Hospital, and we do collaborate with our 2 different vaccine research organizations because we don't do the vaccine research by ourselves. So we have the e-model, e-service model via our website, which has been there for 10 years now. We have own closed investigators registry where our members can register there. We have received almost 250 new clinical trial requests ever since we started, and almost 80 expert consultations. And we provide various type of support materials and trainings and conferences for our members. And our own, the only research, the YPAC teen group is located in Helsinki University Hospital. It calls Fin Research Teens. This is our website. If you want to look for more information, it's there available in English. And the last one is the summary, the signals for the future. The signals we know already, there will be this legislation reform, new directive and regulation. It will mean that there will be less scientific committees, but more scientific working parties at the agency, and the expert pools with the pediatric expertise and the full member state representation. There will be faster PIP process because the new legislation includes the stepwise PIP. We are using the stepwise PIP and moving faster with the PIP processes, and also the mechanism of action in the PIPs. And there is a limit for the deferrals. Previously, the deferrals were too long. Now it's 5 years maximum for the deferrals for the PIPs. Well, shall we have a large pool of stakeholders and members at the Imprima? We will see, not know yet how that will be established. But the new structure of governance may also be possible for the Imprima, how the coordinating group will be elected and selected. We will see. Further changes and simplifications to the membership criteria and the application is already on its way. It's going to be anyway, we know that already. And also, we hope that we have more developed ethical and quality standards aligned also globally, as Ricardo mentioned. We work on that. We have more effective EU level and global collaboration and practice sharing, and hopefully new initiatives and new funding instruments, and increased awareness in involvement of public, patient and families, and hopefully this will increase. And the increase of use of data. We know there are several streams now thinking how they use real-world data, how they use artificial intelligence, different steps and new technologies, and hopefully increase the pediatric clinical trials also. That is that, and regards from the Helsinki University Hospital, New Children's Hospital. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to start to ask if there are questions from the audience. Emilia, please.
I think
Yes, yes, it's small and you speak loud.
First of all, really congratulations for all this effort. You are achieving almost the adult phase. You are late teenager, so congratulations for everything you are doing. My point is that I think that one of the key messages is that you have the structure, you have the networks, you have the benchmarking, you have the regulation, you have the participation of almost all stakeholders. And my point is about funding mechanisms particularly for science, because I'm assuming that if you have mechanisms to fund science, industry-driven or investigator-initiated, the European Commission, the national countries, we assume that you can have overheads, service, pay for services and be sustainable. But I'm wondering to know what are your expectations, and I have also some the idea that the funding mechanisms for investigator-initiated are not increasing, and the cooperation between industry and the networks is also difficult to manage the sustainability of these networks. But I would like to know what are your expectations, what do you think are the way to go to have some sustainability and that this investment in the infrastructure, in the network, should be, really increasing or stable and mature and for a long time, remain for a long time.
Thank you for the question. You are in the core. That was absolutely really, really good question, and the core question regarding all our activities. And that's the biggest and the main problem also for all our networks. Well, first of all, you mentioned the European Commission and the framework programs and the Horizon calls and everything. As you know, the Commission cannot fund member states' activities at the member state level. So they can only fund the research streams and the research programs. And usually these programs are based on a certain narrow therapeutic area or narrow topic, a very, very limited or very, very short minor stream of research. So knowing this, the remit of funding national level infrastructures and networks, it lays on the national level. And that's really a sad thing if you don't have good funding streams at the national level. So hopefully this new C4CS will bring us some light to that, if there is this business model works properly. But you have to find, in Finland, for example, we have managed to stay alive, so to say, for so long, because all ours pay very small amount of money to cover part of my work and part of our activity and the website, and the Helsinki University Hospital supports the website and all that kind of technical things. So without these, we would not have been able to manage to be alive. So the core question is in the future that how the national hubs can be able to collect funding streams from different types of funding. We know that there are currently such networks in Europe that I can say examples for SwissBetNet. I've been in an advisory board, the UK network, and there are some others. They have national level funding from the government, their governmental level funding, and there have been also some funding streams from the ministries of health or ministries of education in some of the networks in Europe. But those are usually for a certain period of time. For example, 2 years, 3 years, and so, but not permanent structure funding. And that's really, really good question and the core element, what we need to discuss and think how that can be done in future.
Thank you. And maybe I can add to, in the context of this organization, so within Connect for Children, we had the chance of working in a private-public partnership. And to have all this time, this pretty long horizon of working together, in a way now we're victims of success in the sense not everything worked perfectly, but we had a number of tools, and now we have to go back into the real world of infrastructure and having to deal with both, on the one hand, ensuring that we work on specific projects and that we deliver, and that could be trials, academic, industry, or project, or Horizon-funded projects. But we know that that is not enough. We need resources for the underpinning work, the continuous work. And that may not be much, but there's a little bit of that is needed. Currently, our view is that this has to be a multimodal approach. So people have to work locally to find different streams of funding. We have to be very active in trying to be involved in Horizon submission projects, along with other partners, with other networks. So also not overlap and clash, but rather work together, see what different people can provide. But yes, the sustainability is a big challenge for all of us. I just want to add that there's another element to this, which are the sites. So the networks are made of sites, and the networks are very important. There's a lot of background work that the sites are maybe not to, or they don't need to. We know we were involved in infrastructure, right? But then there's also the challenge of how can we help sites dealing with everyday routine problems. For example, within our field of pediatrics, staff turnover, not being prioritized. How can we actually also help maybe some of the industry local teams to profile pediatrics in a way that they can bring over and be competitive to bring over more trials? And by the way, I know that this is, Finland is a very large, well, it's quite large country with few people, right? But we have the same challenge, the volume of trials in Finland is not too large, we know that, right? So I think we have to work in across different ways. For now, there's no miracle solution.
I would say that the number of trials are not so much, but in terms of epidemiology, Finland, it's really ahead of the majority of the European countries, right? So it's we could learn from it, and in that respect, I have. Before I go back to I will go back, but as a follow-up, how easy or what are the challenges in Finland to actually have a dream network for these trials? What are, in your opinion, what can be done to really consolidate this?
Good question and timely topic as the collaboration exactly between the countries. That's why we established the Nordic PetMed between the 5 Nordic countries to increase the volume of patients and the population level. But now to collaboration with the European level, we need to collaborate with many countries to increase the number of patients and to make a meaningful sizes for the patient pools for future trials, and that's what we are trying to do, and we have been rehearsing that through a few EU projects, and the collaboration is the key to do the collaboration with many countries. But of course, at the national level, it's really important to inform our hospitals. As Ricardo said, you have been doing the tour and the round in hospitals, the same what we have been doing in the early years. We had the meetings in our university hospitals, in our doctors' meetings, and the specialized societies, the pediatric society, and all type of meetings to sharing the information that how to collaborate, how to act when it comes to new proposal or new request for a trial, what they should do and where they should get, they will get help for that, and sharing the information. That's really, really important part. Also the training part, because there are still so many people not knowing exactly how to conduct pediatric clinical trials, so we need that all the time. So basically this networking and the information sharing and training are the basic elements of that.
Thank you. So there was a question.
I'm Monica Roberts, the country head for clinical operations in Roche, Portugal, part of the medical department. First of all, I want to congratulate the effort and the work, the achievements that you have already reached in Europe. One short comment related to funding. Maybe you could also engage with other research networks of other areas. For example, oncology, they are very well organized already in Europe, and they have kind of hubs that support them to search for research grants and help the countries to conduct more academic and these collaborative research projects. A quick question regarding to the number of trials, pediatric trials, comparing to the States, for example, because we cannot, I don't know if 400 and something are good. Is it a good number or not comparing to other regions of the world, for example, US? Just a quick question. And then another one that probably takes longer to get the answer is regarding ethics. And I know that you are, well, just taking the opportunity that you are here, you're involved in this with Emma. What are the big hurdles and barriers that we have in Europe? We know we are a more conservative region comparing to the States, for example. What are the big hurdles to implement the centralized tools and trials here in Europe? I would like to hear that from you. I know we will have Professor Alessandra later, but I want to hear that from you. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. There were 3 different questions here, so I will start from the first one. The potential funding streams for example, the oncology. We our network includes that. We work with the ITCC, and we have 2 sites in Finland, and so does other networks. It's kind of an integrated part, and the funding for those activities are also supporting our clinical trial unit and so on. But those are not very sustainable funding. Those are per project and so on. But yes, that's important part. And the second part was the about the not the ethics committee, but before that, the number. Yeah, the number. Yes. Unfortunately, I don't know exact the other jurisdictions what numbers they have exactly. So you might search from the clinicaltrials.gov or some other database to look numbers. Or if Ricardo.
I can just jump in and say that I think for me, in taking on the national hat, it's missed opportunities. Just looking at the European number, if you compare with those that I've shown, we have a tenth of the overall. So if it's 90% or just not coming here. I'm not sure about yours, but I think maybe it's a little bit better, but so it's, yeah, and I think the number, I mean, certainly globally the number is higher, and then there are some differences, but yes, I think if you're coming to the point of European space being slightly uncompetitive in some aspects, I think we agree.
But the overall numbers, yeah, I know the European numbers are, we share approximately 30% of global clinical trials, 30% in Europe, and the 70% all around other parts of the world. So that's the basic, just information for you. So the third part was the ethics part. Yes, thank you. And that is really, really challenging because it's still the same. We have the national remit on the certain requirements for the informed consents and assents and so on. So we have tried to somehow harmonize on the basic level between the Nordic countries, because we thought back some years ago that if we start to think that between the Nordic countries, it might result something, but still we haven't been able to do that because that's under national legislation, and there are so many different legislations linked to the, for example, the age limits. We have driving license limits, we have criminal records limits, we have so many others which are linked to these ages. So we need to just live with that. I don't know whether this type of harmonization will ever come to Europe. We have these 27 countries and all the national requirements. But basically, at least the information what we have been trying to share and inform through Imprima, it might help to a little bit to design these documents, despite you have these different age limits and these different requirements, there is at least the similar type of thinking and the similar type of information you can use for all the industry trials and all the academic trials. So please use all those documents on the Imprima website, because those are publicly available for everyone. So that's the, yeah.
And if I say, yes, I was going to flag that you've done work on this, and there's toolkits in the Imprima. If I may just flag that maybe we can have in the second panel the opportunity to ask questions, and maybe even if it's in Portuguese, we can ask you to comment things like referrals and how different the Nordic countries work together as an entry point, and then as also during a trial that have ethical implications, and sometimes that certainly is a space that we need to explore more in the rare and ultra-rare diseases, so we could have opportunity to ask about that.
So may I ask you, I have two questions that I really would like to ask before we leave. And one is, when we consider pediatrics up to 18, are we really considering the transitions from child to adolescence, and also are we really taking care of the sex differences? And this is a more scientific question, of course, or the outcome of the scientific question. So one of you.
I guess going back to the toolkit that Pirko has worked on, and others also from an ethics committee, I think transition, so we've certainly in clinical care have worked a lot and evolved a lot in transition of care. I think sort of Felipe's presentation may touch on transition, so we can wait for that. I think transition during a trial is certainly an issue, theoretical and practical issue when it comes to reconsent, etc. I think maybe for sex and gender issues around, for example, puberty and adolescence, there are very interesting work currently being done, already done and published, for example, by Professor Helena Fonseca here in Portugal. So I'm not sure if that was the question, but I think that touches on it. I'm not sure if you want to add.
Well, the only thing what I can say that there are a lot of activities around these topics, especially the inclusion of the adolescents to the adult trials. And for example, the European Forum for Clinical Practice and the Medicines Working Party, they have published already a tool for that, and they try to support, and they reviewed all the guidance and regulatory documents from the FDA, from the EMA, aside how that could be possibly done, and there are some limitations, but yes, hopefully in the future it might be easier. But the regulation is quite strict. There is this 18 years limit, and it sets strange artificial limitation for, yeah.
So one last question, because
I'm getting eyes from Liliana, so I think she's pushing us to go.
And this is regarding to one-stop shop. So this is a Portuguese question, and since I'm here in the name of ICIB, in your eyes, what are the limitations, and what would you like to have in the one-stop shop? Yes.
Yes, I'll take
course,
that.
Because we
yes.
kind of exchange.
Yeah, so I think first there are examples that can be explored, and again, less so I think in FinPedMed, but our colleagues in Sweden, in Norway, in Denmark work with Trial Nation, Nord Trials, Sweden Clinical Studies, and they have their networks. There are slightly different models, I am aware, so some interface, some of the entry points are always, for example, Trial Nation, and if it's pediatric, they work with the Pediatric Clinical Research Network as one, maybe not the exclusive, but as one potential interface. I think there's good examples that we could work together, if that's a possibility, to, I think it's more leverage what is already existing and ensure that it's not just a process. I mean, for us, the experience in these past years, and Pirko can comment because she has 17 years of this, it's not just a contact point. Yes, it's the start, so an email, a contact point, and the process is a start, but then there are human element of the continuity and the relationships. And if we make a one-stop shop, just an email or just a contact point, that's not going to be enough. So certainly within the pediatric community, if we have the opportunity to work together, that would be fantastic. And there are others working in the space, so it's about sharing the space and finding the best ways. I don't know if you want to add, because I'm not sure about
Yeah, I can add something. So from my background and my experience in Finland, it's really kind of a funny thing to see that the industry still likes to work like they have always been working. So they like to contact our key opinion leaders directly, our experts directly, and that's what we have been trying to collaborate with Pharma Industry Finland. We have had several seminars, meetings with the industry partners to explain that please contact centrally our network. And nowadays, for a few years now, since 2018, we started to have a separate email, central email, to our new children's hospital for pediatric trials, because that helped a little bit. The companies, they are now contacting directly the hospital, but anyway, it comes to us from the other way around. But we have been trying to speak about this and talk about this, and Ricardo will you will have the same road ahead with the C4CS, but it's really difficult because the CROs and the industry companies, they work as they have learned to work. So yeah.
But I think we've also learned that needs to be, I mean, that for sure needs, QOLs need to be respected. That's not the issue. It's inserting some other opportunities for the pediatric community to be represented, I think. And I think we have good examples, yeah, of that,
enlarged
yes.
community.
Exactly.
Because there are some parts of Portugal that would not be representative if
Yes.
if
part of the
one
issue.
thing, one structure like this would not take place. So consider an invitation to collaborate with us.
Thank you very much.
So thank
I'm
you
not
so
sure.
much.
Thank you. I'm not sure if Liliana, so we're certainly behind schedule, and sorry for that. If Dr. Sofia doesn't mind, we're going to have 15 minutes of coffee break. And anything else that you want to tell us? No? Okay. Okay, muito obrigado.